The giant hall on Nexus Prime was filled with strange sounds. Clicks, hisses, chirps, and low growls mixed together as hundreds of alien beings talked among themselves. The Galactic Council was meeting again, just like it did every month. Jake Morrison sat in the human section, looking small compared to the massive creatures around him. The Korthak delegates were twice his size, with thick gray skin and 4 arms. The floating Vexani made soft singing sounds as they spoke. Even the plant-like Verdans towered over him with their thick wooden bodies. Jake had been Earth's ambassador for 3 years now. He still remembered his first day here, when everyone stared at the new species that had just learned to travel between stars. Humans were babies compared to these ancient civilizations. Some aliens here had been traveling space for thousands of years. "The meeting will begin," announced Speaker Horthvan, a tall blue creature with tentacles instead of arms. The noise died down as everyone turned to listen. Jake checked his tablet. Today's agenda looked normal. Trade disputes, border agreements, the usual boring stuff that kept the galaxy peaceful. He yawned and settled back in his chair. Then something changed. The air in the room grew thick with tension. Jake looked up to see a group of insect-like aliens marching into the hall. Their hard black shells gleamed under the lights and their compound eyes reflected everything like mirrors. The Zephyrian collective had arrived. Jake had never liked the Zephyrians. They were aggressive, always pushing their borders and demanding more territory. Their leader, Hive Commander Zakth, walked in front of the group. He was bigger than the others with red markings on his shell that meant he had killed many enemies. "We have an announcement," Zakth said. His voice came through a translator device, making it sound cold and mechanical. "The collective has claimed new territory." Speaker Horthvan looked confused. "What territory?" There were no applications for expansion filed with the council. Zakth's mandibles clicked together in what Jake knew was Zephyrian laughter. "We do not ask permission to take what is rightfully ours." A chill ran down Jake's spine. He had a bad feeling about this. 3 human colonies have been occupied," Zakth continued. "New Montana, Haven's Rest, and Prosperity Station. They belong to the collective now." The hall erupted in noise. Aliens jumped up from their seats shouting in dozens of languages. Jake felt his blood turn to ice. Those weren't just colonies. They were home to thousands of human families. "You attacked sovereign, human territory?" Speaker Horthvan's tentacles writhed in shock. "This is an act of war." "War?" Zakth laughed again. "Against humans? They are weak creatures who grow plants and fix machines. Our forces met no real resistance." Jake slowly stood up. Every eye in the hall turned to look at him. His hands were shaking, but he kept his voice steady. "Commander Zakth, I need to understand what happened. You attacked civilian populations?" "We attacked human settlements," Zakth replied. "If they were civilians or military, it makes no difference. They are all equally weak." The Altarian. Ambassador Veltar spoke up. His people looked like tall gray cats with silver fur. "Humans are protected under galactic law. This attack violates every treaty we have." "Treaties are for equals," Zakth said. "Humans are not our equals. They have been in space for barely 50 years. We have conquered worlds for 1,000. Siu felt anger building inside him, but he pushed it down. Getting mad would not help anyone. He needed to think clearly. "Speaker Horthvan," Jake said calmly, "I request a recess. I need to contact my government about this situation." "Of course," the speaker replied. "We will reconvene in 6 hours." As Jake walked toward the exit, he heard aliens talking in worried voices behind him. The Verdans were creaking like old trees in a storm. The Korthak were growling deep in their chests. Even the usually calm Vexani were flashing bright colors on their floating bodies. Ambassador Veltar caught up with Jake in the hallway. I'm sorry about this attack," he said. "The Altarian Republic stands with humanity." "Thank you," Jake replied. "That means a lot." "But I must ask," Veltar continued, "what will Earth do?" "Zakth is right about one thing. Humans are new to space. You have no large military, no powerful weapons. How can you fight the Zephyrian collective? Jake looked at the cat-like alien. Veltar was a friend, but he did not understand humans very well. None of them did. Veltar, Jake said quietly. There are things about my people that might surprise you. What do you mean? Jake smiled, but it was not a happy smile. We humans have a saying. Still waters run deep. It means that quiet people often know more than they let on. Veltar's ears flicked with confusion. I do not understand. You will, Jake said. In a few hours, everyone will understand. Jake walked to his private office and locked the door. He sat down at his secure communication terminal and typed in a code that he had hoped never to use. The screen lit up with the seal of Earth's government. A face appeared on the screen. Admiral Lisa Carter, head of Earth Space Forces. She looked tired, but her eyes were sharp and alert. Ambassador Morrison, she said. We've been monitoring the situation. Are you safe? Yes, Admiral. But we have a problem. The Zephyrians have attacked our people. I know, Carter said grimly. We lost contact with all 3 colonies 2 hours ago. Jake felt his heart sink. Are they? We don't know yet. But Jake, there's something you need to understand. Something the Council needs to understand. What do you mean? Admiral Carter leaned forward. Those weren't just farming colonies, Jake. They never were. Jake stared at the screen. Admiral, I don't understand. You will. We're activating Protocol 7. Tell the Council that Earth takes this attack very seriously. Tell them that we will respond appropriately. What should I tell them about our response? Carter's smile was cold as winter. Tell them that they're about to learn what humans are really capable of. The screen went dark. Jake sat in the quiet room, thinking about what he had just heard. Protocol 7. He had heard that name before, but he had never been told what it meant. Outside his office, he could hear aliens talking in the hallways. They were worried about war between humans and Zephyrians. They thought it would be a quick fight with the insects winning easily. Jake looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there, his people were in danger. But something told him that Hive Commander Zakth had made a very big mistake. He just hoped his people on those colonies were still alive to see what happened next. 2 hours after Jake's call, Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the command center deep under the Pentagon. The room was full of screens showing star maps, ship positions, and communication channels. Officers hurried back and forth, their faces serious and focused. Status report, Carter said to her aide, Colonel Danny Walsh. All 3 colonies are under attack, but they're still fighting, Walsh replied. The Zephyrians seem confused by the resistance they're meeting. Carter nodded. She had expected this. What about our assets? All sleeper units are responding. The merchant fleet is moving into position. Our research teams are ready to activate. Carter walked to the main display screen. It showed the galaxy with tiny dots marking human settlements. To most people, it looked like a peaceful trading network. But Carter knew the truth. 50 years ago, when humans first met aliens, Earth's leaders had made a decision. They would seem friendly and harmless while secretly preparing for war. Every human settlement, every trading post, every research station had a hidden purpose. Send the activation code, Carter ordered. It's time to wake up our sleeping giant. 3,000 light-years away on the planet New Montana, Colonel Ryan Blake was having the best day of his life. For 5 years, he had pretended to be a farmer. He grew corn and wheat, fixed tractors, and complained about the weather. It was the most boring job he had ever had. But now, everything was different. Ryan stood in his barn, watching his farm hands change clothes. They took off their dirty work shirts and put on military uniforms. Hidden panels in the walls opened up, revealing weapons and equipment. The barn's floor slid away, showing an elevator that went deep underground. All units report ready, said Sergeant Kelly Murphy, who had been pretending to be a school teacher. The Zephyrians are about to get a big surprise. Ryan grinned. Let's give them one they'll never forget. Outside, Zephyrian soldiers were moving through the wheat fields. They looked like giant black beetles with guns. Their commander was telling them over the radio that humans were weak and would surrender quickly. He was very wrong. Ryan pressed a button on his communicator. All around the colony, hidden weapons came out of the ground. What the Zephyrians thought were water tanks were actually missile launchers. The grain silos opened up to reveal anti-aircraft guns. Even the farm animals were fake. They were remote-controlled robots with cameras inside. Fire, Ryan said quietly. The peaceful farming colony exploded into action. Missiles streaked across the sky, hitting Zephyrian ships. The anti-aircraft guns filled the air with deadly fire. The farmers who had been running away in panic suddenly turned around with military weapons. In space above New Montana, Captain Nina Rodriguez watched the battle from her ship, the UES Ranger. Her vessel looked like a simple cargo hauler, but that was just a disguise. Inside, it was packed with the most advanced sensors and weapons that Earth could build. "The ground defenses are working perfectly," reported her weapons officer, Lieutenant Tom Parker. The Zephyrians had no idea what they were getting into. Nina smiled. She had been disguised as a cargo captain for 3 years, flying around the galaxy and mapping every alien military base, every trade route, every important planet. She was not the only one. Hundreds of merchant ships were doing the same thing. "Contact Admiral Carter," Nina said. "Tell her that the colonies are holding and tell her that we're ready for Phase 2. Back on Earth, Dr. Alex Bennett was in his laboratory, looking at files that contained 50 years of secret research. While other humans had been pretending to be farmers and traders, Alex had been studying aliens. He knew everything about their biology, their weaknesses, and how to fight them. "Admiral," Alex said into his phone, "the Zephyrian analysis is complete. I have 3 ways to stop them." "Tell me," Carter replied. "First, their hearing is very sensitive. Loud noises at certain frequencies will confuse them and make them sick. Second, they communicate using smell chemicals. We can jam those signals. Third, their shells are strong, but they have weak spots at the joints." "Good work, Doctor. Send that information to all our units." Alex smiled. For decades, aliens had thought he was just a curious scientist who liked to study different species. They had been happy to answer his questions and show him around their worlds. They never suspected that he was actually learning how to defeat them. In the Altair system, Commander Pete Wilson got the activation signal while he was fixing a water pump. He had been the chief engineer of Haven's Rest colony for 4 years. The Zephyrians had attacked 2 hours ago, and they thought they were winning. They were about to learn differently. Pete ran to the colony's power plant, which was not really a power plant at all. It was a command center for the most powerful weapons system in this part of the galaxy. Hidden under the ground were enough missiles to destroy a small fleet. "Computer, activate defense protocol," Pete said. "Defense protocol activated," the computer replied. "All systems online." The ground around Haven's Rest began to shake. Giant doors opened in the earth, and massive guns rose up like metal flowers. The Zephyrians stopped their attack and stared in shock. "What is this?" their commander shouted. "This is supposed to be a farming colony." Pete pressed a button, and speakers all around the colony turned on. His voice echoed across the battlefield. "Welcome to Haven's Rest," Pete said calmly. "We grow the best wheat in the galaxy. We also grow the biggest guns. Would you like to see?" On Prosperity Station, engineer Kate Sullivan was having similar fun. The Zephyrians had surrounded the space station, thinking it was just a place where humans grew food in space. They did not know that it was actually a giant weapon designed to disable enemy ships. Kate flipped a switch, and the station's true power came online. Energy weapons that had been hidden as solar panels turned toward the Zephyrian fleet. A massive electromagnetic pulse generator, disguised as a communications array, began to charge up. "This is Prosperity Station to all Zephyrian ships," Kate announced. "You have 30 seconds to surrender before we show you what we really do here." "We do not surrender to farmers," the Zephyrian admiral replied. "We're not farmers," Kate said with a grin. "We're soldiers." She pressed the activation button. The electromagnetic pulse shot out from the station like an invisible hammer. Every Zephyrian ship in the area suddenly went dark as their electronics died. They floated helplessly in space, unable to move or fight. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Veltar was pacing nervously. The recess was almost over and he was worried about the humans. They seemed so weak compared to the Zephyrians. His aide, a young Altarian named Kessela, ran up to him with a tablet. "Sir, we're getting strange reports from the battle zones," Kessela said. "What kind of reports?" "The humans. They're winning, sir." Veltar stopped pacing. "What do you mean, winning?" "The Zephyrian forces are retreating from all 3 colonies. Their ships are damaged or destroyed. Their ground troops are surrendering." Veltar stared at the tablet. The numbers did not make sense. How could peaceful farmers defeat one of the galaxy's most powerful military forces? "There must be a mistake," he said. "No, sir. We have confirmed reports from multiple sources. The humans were ready for this attack. They had weapons hidden everywhere." Veltar felt his fur stand on end. If this was true, then everything they thought they knew about humans was wrong. The session bell rang, calling everyone back to the main hall. Veltar walked slowly to his seat, his mind spinning with questions. Around him, other aliens were getting the same reports. The Korthak were growling in confusion. The Vexani were flashing worried colors. Ambassador Jake Morrison walked back into the hall, looking exactly the same as when he had left. He sat down calmly and waited for the session to begin, but there was something different about him now. Something in his eyes that had not been there before. Speaker Horthvan called for order. "We have received disturbing reports from the conflict zone. It appears that the human colonies were not as defenseless as expected." Hive Commander Zakth clicked his mandibles angrily. "Impossible. Humans are weak. They have no real military." Jake stood up slowly. Every eye in the hall focused on him. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but clear. "Commander Zakth," Jake said, "I think there are some things about my people that you do not understand." The Galactic Council Hall had never been so quiet. Every alien in the room was staring at Jake Morrison as he stood at the human delegation's podium. Even the air recycling system seemed to be holding their breath. Hive Commander Zakith's compound eyes reflected the hall's lights like broken mirrors. "What do you mean, human? Your colonies are defeated. My forces control them now." Jake pulled out a small device and connected it to the council's display system. A holographic image appeared above the center of the hall, showing a real-time view of New Montana. The aliens gasped. Instead of Zephyrian soldiers marching through captured farmland, they saw something impossible. Zephyrian troops were lined up with their hands raised in surrender. Human soldiers in combat gear were guarding them. In the background, massive weapons rose from what had looked like innocent farm buildings. "This image is from 30 minutes ago," Jake said calmly. "Colonel Ryan Blake sends his regards." Zakith's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Impossible! This must be fake!" Jake touched his device again. The image changed to show Haven's Rest. Commander Pete Wilson was standing next to a huge cannon that had emerged from underground. Zephyrian vehicles lay scattered around, smoking and broken. "This is Haven's Rest," Jake continued. "As you can see, our wheat crop is doing very well this season." The third image showed Prosperity Station. Zephyrian ships floated helplessly in space while human vessels that had appeared from nowhere collected the survivors. "And this is Prosperity Station," Jake said. "Engineer Kate Sullivan wanted me to tell you that her electromagnetic pulse system works better than expected." Speaker Horthvan's tentacles writhed in confusion. "Ambassador Morrison, how is this possible? Our intelligence report said these were agricultural settlements." "They are agricultural settlements," Jake replied with a straight face. "We grow excellent crops. We also happen to grow excellent soldiers." Ambassador Veltar stood up, his silver fur standing on end. "Jake, what is going on? How did peaceful farmers defeat a Zephyrian battle fleet?" Jake looked around the hall at all the confused faces. These aliens had known humans for 50 years, but they had never really understood what they were dealing with. "Veltar, my friend," Jake said. "Let me tell you a story about my people." The hall fell silent again. Jake activated his communicator, and Admiral Carter's face appeared on the main screen. "Admiral," Jake said, Please explain to the Council what humans have been doing for the past 50 years. Carter looked out at the assembled aliens with cool, professional eyes. Certainly, Ambassador. When humanity first encountered alien civilizations, we made a decision. We would prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. What does that mean? Asked Veltar. It means, Carter continued, that every human settlement, trading post, research station, and merchant ship has a dual purpose. On the surface, we appear to be peaceful farmers, traders, and scientists. Underneath, we are the largest military network in galactic history. The aliens began to make worried noises. Clicks, growls, chirps, and hisses filled the air. Admiral Carter smiled coldly. Let me give you some examples. The Korthak delegation remembers Dr. Susan Clark, who spent 3 years studying their culture. She was also mapping their military installations. The Vexani hosted Professor Mark Williams as a guest lecturer. He was actually analyzing their fleet movements. The Verdans welcomed engineer Lisa Thompson to study their forest cities. She was learning how to disable their planetary defense systems. The name species looked at each other in shock. They remembered these humans well. They had seemed so friendly and curious. Every human you have met, Carter continued, has been gathering intelligence while maintaining their cover identity. We now know the location of every alien military base, every important planet, every trade route, and every weakness in your defenses. Hive Commander Zakth was making angry clicking sounds. You dare to spy on the Galactic Council? We dare to protect ourselves, Jake replied. And it's a good thing we did, since you just proved that some species cannot be trusted to follow galactic law. A new voice spoke up from the Draknari section. Ambassador Thulmora was a reptilian creature with scales that changed color with his emotions. Right now, they were flashing deep red, which meant fear. How long have you been planning this? Thulmora asked. Since the day we first left Earth, Jake answered. We studied galactic history and learned that peaceful species usually get conquered by aggressive ones. We decided that would not happen to us. Admiral Carter nodded. Human settlements are not random. Every colony is placed in a strategic location. Every trading post controls a vital supply route. Every research station watches an important star system. We have been building a defensive network across the galaxy while everyone thought we were just spreading out to farm and explore. Ambassador Veltar's ears were flat against his head. Jake, how many humans are actually soldiers? All of them, Jake replied simply. The hall erupted in noise as aliens jumped to their feet, shouting, in dozens of languages. Some were angry, some were scared, and some were amazed. Speaker Horthvan raised his tentacles for silence. Ambassador Morrison, are you saying that every human civilian is actually military personnel? Not exactly, Jake said. But every human settlement has both real civilians and hidden military units. Colonel Blake really does grow excellent corn. He also commands a regiment of Marines. Engineer Sullivan really does run a farming station. She also operates the most powerful weapon in this sector. A small, mouse-like alien from the Piptar Confederacy raised a shaky paw. How many weapons do you have hidden? Jake looked at Admiral Carter, who checked her tablet. At last count, we have approximately 15,000 hidden military installations, 800 disguised warships, and 2 million personnel in deep cover assignments. The number hit the council like a physical blow. Several aliens sat down, heavily in their chairs. But why? Asked Veltar. We welcomed you in peace, we offered friendship. And we accepted both, Jake said. But we also remembered our history. On Earth, peaceful peoples often got destroyed by warlike ones. We decided to be peaceful but not helpless. Admiral Carter leaned forward on the screen. We hoped we would never need to use these preparations. We wanted to live in peace with all species. But when someone attacks human civilians, they discover that we are not the easy targets they expected. Hive Commander Zakth was vibrating with rage. This is treachery. You have deceived the entire galaxy. No, Jake said firmly. We have protected ourselves. There is a difference. You lied to us. We never lied about anything. We really are farmers and traders and scientists. We just happen to be very well-armed farmers and traders and scientists." A new image appeared on the main screen. It showed a star map of the galaxy with thousands of tiny red dots marking human positions. "This is what the galaxy really looks like," Admiral Carter said. "Red dots are human military assets. As you can see, we are everywhere." The aliens stared at the map in stunned silence. The red dots covered every major trade route, every important system, every strategic location. Humanity had been building a galactic empire while pretending to be harmless farmers. Ambassador Veltar slowly stood up. "Jake, I have to ask, are you planning to conquer the galaxy?" "Of course not," Jake replied. "We want to trade with you, learn from you, and live in peace. But if someone attacks us, they will discover that humans do not make good victims." "What about the Zephyrians?" asked Speaker Horthvan. Jake looked at the main screen, where Admiral Carter was waiting for instructions. "Admiral," Jake said, "what is the status of Zephyrian military forces?" Carter checked her displays. "Their attack fleet is completely disabled. Their ground forces have surrendered. Their home system is currently surrounded by ships they thought were human merchant vessels." Zakth made a sound like steam escaping from a broken pipe. "Surrounded? What do you mean, surrounded?" "I mean," Carter said with a cold smile, "that the 15 human cargo ships in your system just dropped their disguises. They are now revealing themselves to be battleships. Your homeworld is completely defenseless." The Zephyrian commanders' shell turned pale gray, which Jake knew meant absolute terror. "What do you want?" Zakth whispered. Jake looked around the council hall at all the shocked faces. Some aliens were scared, some were angry, but all of them were finally beginning to understand what humanity really was. "We want what we have always wanted," Jake said quietly. "Peace, trade, friendship. The only difference is that now you know what happens to anyone who tries to take those things away from us." He sat down and folded his hands in his lap, looking for all the world like a peaceful diplomat who had never hurt anyone in his life. But now everyone in the galaxy knew the truth about humans, and they would never forget it. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the command center, watching the tactical display that showed the entire galaxy. Green dots marked friendly forces, red dots showed Zephyrian positions, and blue dots represented the hundreds of human ships that were dropping their disguises across space. "Admiral," Colonel Walsh said, "all units report ready for Operation Harvest Moon." Carter nodded. It was time to show the galaxy what happened when someone attacked humanity. The Zephyrians had started this fight, but humans would finish it. "Send the order," Carter said. "Begin the counterstrike." In the Zephyrian home system, Captain Nina Rodriguez smiled as her ship's hull plates shifted and fell away. The UES Ranger had looked like a simple cargo hauler for 3 years. Now it revealed its true form, a sleek warship armed with the latest human technology. Around her, 14 other merchant vessels were doing the same thing. The Zephyrian defense fleet had been watching these harmless cargo ships for months, never suspecting that they were actually Earth's most advanced battleships. "Captain," Lieutenant Parker reported, "the Zephyrians are trying to activate their planetary defenses." "Too late," Nina replied. "We've been studying their systems for years, jam their communications and disable their weapon satellites." The human ships moved with perfect coordination. They had been planning this moment for decades, and every detail had been rehearsed countless times. Within minutes, the entire Zephyrian defense network went dark. On the planet's surface, Zephyrian military commanders stared at their screens in disbelief. Their orbital weapons were offline. Their communications were cut. Ships they had trusted, as friendly traders, were now pointing weapons at their world. "How is this possible?" General Vrikzak clicked to his staff. "Those were cargo vessels." "Sir," his aide replied nervously, "we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet." Nina's face appeared on the main screen in the Zephyrian command center. She looked calm and professional, like someone discussing a business deal. "General Vrikzak," Nina said, "my name is Captain Rodriguez. I've been delivering supplies to your system for 3 years. Thank you for always being so welcoming." What do you want? The general hissed. I want you to contact Hive Commander Zakth and tell him to surrender immediately. You have 1 hour to comply. We will never surrender to humans. Nina's expression did not change. General, let me explain something. Those 15 human ships you see on your sensors? They're not the only ones. Every human merchant vessel in Zephyrian space is actually a warship. Every human trader is actually a soldier. Every human researcher is actually a spy. She touched a control, and the tactical display showed dozens more ships appearing throughout Zephyrian territory. You are not fighting 3 human colonies, Nina continued. You are fighting the entire human race, and we have been preparing for this day for 50 years. Meanwhile, on the planet Haven's Rest, Colonel Sam Torres was leading his Marines through the Zephyrian command bunker. For 4 years, he had been disguised as a technical advisor, helping the Zephyrians improve their farming equipment. He knew exactly where all their important facilities were located. Room clear, Sergeant Kelly Murphy reported as they moved through the underground complex. The Zephyrians are surrendering without a fight. Torres was not surprised. His people had used Dr. Bennett's research to develop sonic weapons that made Zephyrian soldiers sick and confused. They had also deployed chemical agents that jammed the insects' ability to communicate through smell. Sir, Corporal Mike Davis called out, we found their communications center. It's exactly where the blueprints said it would be. Torres smiled. The Zephyrians had no idea that every piece of equipment they had bought from humans contained hidden transmitters. Earth's intelligence services knew the location of every important Zephyrian facility. Secure the area, Torres ordered, and send a message to Admiral Carter. Tell her we have control of their command structure. In space above New Montana, Lieutenant Grace Murphy was leading a boarding party onto a disabled Zephyrian cruiser. She had been posing as a cargo inspector for 2 years, which gave her access to detailed plans of Zephyrian ship designs. The command deck is this way, Grace told her team as they moved through the corridors. The ship's crew was unconscious, from the sonic weapons making their job easy. They found Hive Commander Zakth in his command chair, clutching his head in pain. The sonic attack had damaged his hearing and left him barely able to stand. Commander, Grace said politely, I'm Lieutenant Murphy. You're under arrest for attacking human civilians. Zakth looked up at her with his compound eyes. You are not soldiers. You are farmers and traders. I'm actually a Marine, Grace replied. But I did enjoy my time working at the grain storage facility. You Zephyrians buy excellent fertilizer. She helped the confused insect to his feet. Come on, sir. It's time to end this war. Back at the Galactic Council, new reports were coming in every few minutes. Ambassador Veltar read each update with growing amazement. Kessela, he said to his aide, are you sure these numbers are correct? Yes, sir. Zephyrian forces are surrendering across 12 star systems. Human ships are appearing everywhere. It's like they materialized out of nothing. Veltar looked over at Jake Morrison, who was sitting quietly in his chair, reading what appeared to be a farming report. The human looked completely relaxed, as if his people were not currently dismantling one of the galaxy's most powerful military forces. Jake, Veltar called out. How long will this take? Jake looked up from his tablet. Oh, it should be over. Soon. Humans are very efficient. But how are you doing this so quickly? Jake smiled. Veltar, remember when you asked me about human strategy? I told you that we learn from history. Well, one thing we learned is that the best way to win a war is to make sure your enemy never realizes they're fighting one until it's too late. What do you mean? We've been at war with the Zephyrians for 3 years, Jake explained. We just didn't tell them about it. Veltar's ears twitched with confusion. 3 years? But they only attacked today. They made the decision to attack 3 years ago. Our intelligence services learned about their plans and started preparing. Every human who visited Zephyrian space since then has been a soldier gathering information and positioning assets. Ambassador Thulmora leaned over from the Draknari section. You mean you knew this would happen? We knew they were planning something, Jake replied. Aggressive species usually give warning signs before they attack. The Zephyrians have been talking about human weakness for months. They've been testing our responses to border incidents. They've been studying our colonies. And you were studying them back, Veltar realized. Much more thoroughly than they were studying us, Jake confirmed. The difference is that we're better at hiding what we're doing. A new message appeared on Jake's tablet. He read it and smiled. Ah, Jake said. It looks like Hive Commander Zakth has been captured. The war is officially over. Already? Speaker Horthavan's tentacles writhed in amazement. But it started only 6 hours ago. Human military doctrine, Jake explained, focuses on speed and surprise. Why fight a long war when you can win a short one? Admiral Carter's face appeared on the main screen again. Ambassador Morrison, I'm pleased to report that Zephyrian military forces have surrendered. We have captured their leadership and disabled their fleet. Total human casualties, 12 injured, none killed. The council hall was dead silent. An entire interstellar war had been fought and won in less than 6 hours, with humans taking almost no losses. What about Zephyrian casualties? Asked Veltar quietly. Minimal, Carter replied. We used non-lethal weapons whenever possible. Most of their personnel are unconscious or confused but alive. We're not interested in killing them. We just wanted to stop their aggression. Hive Commander Zakth's voice came through the speakers, sounding weak and defeated. Human Admiral, I do not understand. How did you defeat us so easily? Carter's expression was serious but not unkind. Commander, you made the same mistake that many aggressive species make. You confused peaceful behavior with weakness. Humans are peaceful because we choose to be, not because we have to be. But your people are farmers and traders, Zakth protested. Yes, we are. We're also soldiers, scientists, engineers, and strategists. Human beings can be many things at once. Dr. Alex Bennett's face appeared on a smaller screen. Commander Zakth, I should mention that I've been studying your species for 20 years. I know exactly how your biology works, how your society functions, and what tactics work best against your military. Every human soldier in this operation has been trained specifically to fight Zephyrians. Zakth made a sound like air leaking from a broken valve. You have been planning this for 20 years? We've been planning for every possible threat since we first left Earth, Bennett replied. The Zephyrians were just one scenario among many. Jake stood up and addressed the council. Friends, this war is over. The Zephyrian collective has surrendered and their forces are being disarmed. But I want to make something clear to everyone here. The hall fell silent as every alien focused on the human ambassador. This was not conquest, Jake said firmly. This was self-defense. We do not want to rule anyone or take anyone's territory. We simply will not allow anyone to attack human civilians. 3 days later, the Galactic Council met again. The Great Hall looked the same as always, but everything felt different. Aliens who had once chatted freely now spoke in quiet, nervous voices. Eyes kept turning toward the human section, where Jake Morrison sat reading his usual farming reports. Hive Commander Zakth stood in the center of the hall, but he was no longer the proud warrior who had announced his attack on human colonies. His shell was cracked in several places and his compound eyes looked dull and defeated. 2 human guards stood beside him, looking polite but alert. The council recognizes the Zephyrian collective, Speaker Horthavan announced. Commander Zakth, you have requested to address the assembly. Zaktha's voice was barely a whisper through his translator. Honored council, I wish to formally surrender all Zephyrian forces to the human government. A murmur went through the hall. Even though everyone knew the war was over, hearing the official surrender was still shocking. I also wish to ask a question, Zakth continued. He turned toward Jake Morrison. Human ambassador, how did you do this? How did your people defeat us so completely? Jake set down his tablet and stood up. He looked at the broken Zephyrian commander with something that might have been sympathy. Commander, Jake said, you made the mistake of thinking that peaceful people are weak people. You assumed that because we grow food and fix machines, we could not fight. But you are farmers, Zakth protested weakly. Yes, we are. Colonel, Blake really does grow the best corn in the galaxy, but he also graduated from Earth's most elite military academy. Engineer Sullivan really does run an excellent farming station. She also designed the electromagnetic pulse weapon that disabled your fleet. Jake walked closer to the defeated commander. You see, humans learned something important from our history. The most dangerous enemies are the ones you never see coming. Admiral Carter's image appeared on the main screen. She looked tired but satisfied. Commander Zakth, Carter said, your intelligence files described humans as a weak species with no real military. Those files were 50 years out of date. What do you mean? When humans first met aliens, we were weak. We had just learned to travel between stars. Our weapons were primitive, and our military was small. But we learned something important from meeting older civilizations. Carter touched a control, and a new image appeared showing Earth's development over the past 50 years. We realized that if we wanted to survive in a galaxy full of powerful species, we could not afford to stay weak. So we spent 50 years becoming strong while pretending to stay weak. Dr. Bennett's face appeared on another screen. Commander, remember when I visited your homeworld to study Zephyrian culture? You were very helpful. You showed me your military bases, your weapon factories, your training facilities. You thought I was just a curious scientist. Zakth's mandibles clicked in recognition. Dr. Bennett, you were mapping our defenses. Among other things, yes. I also studied your biology, your psychology, your tactics, and your weaknesses. Every human researcher who visited Zephyrian space was doing the same thing. But why? Zakth asked. We were not enemies then. No, Bennett agreed. But our analysis showed that your species had aggressive tendencies. We prepared for the possibility that you might attack us someday. Ambassador Veltar stood up from the Altarian section. Jake, I need to ask something. That's been bothering me. How many species have you been studying like this? Jake looked around the hall. All of them. The words hit the council like a physical blow. Aliens jumped to their feet, shouting in dozens of languages. Some sounded angry, some sounded scared, and some just sounded confused. You have been spying on everyone? Demanded Ambassador Thulamora. We prefer to call it being prepared. Jake replied calmly. We study every species we meet. We learn their strengths, their weaknesses, their military capabilities, and their intentions. It's basic survival strategy. But we are allies, protested the Piptar delegate. Yes, you are. And we hope you always will be. But hope is not a strategy. Admiral Carter nodded. Human policy is simple. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. We study everyone because we cannot predict the future. Some species that seem friendly today might become aggressive tomorrow. Like the Zephyrians, Veltar said quietly. Exactly like the Zephyrians, Carter confirmed. Speaker Horth Van raised his tentacles for silence. Ambassador Morrison, the Council needs to understand something. Are humans planning to attack other species? Of course not, Jake replied immediately. We have no interest in conquest or aggression. We want to trade, learn, and live in peace. Then why do you need all these weapons? Jake smiled sadly. Because, Speaker, peace only works when everyone wants it. There will always be species like the Zephyrians who think they can take what they want by force. Our weapons exist to protect peaceful peoples from aggressive ones. A new voice spoke from the back of the hall. Colonel Ryan Blake had arrived from New Montana, still wearing his farming clothes but now with a military rank insignia on his collar. If I may add something, Blake said as he walked to the front. I've been growing crops on New Montana for 5 years. I really do love farming. I also really love protecting innocent people from bullies. He looked at Zakth. Commander, your forces attacked civilian farms. They shot at families who were just trying to grow food. Did you think we would just let that happen? Zakth could not meet Blake's eyes. We thought humans were weak. We are weak, Blake said softly. We're weak individually. A Korthak warrior could tear me apart with his bare hands. A Draknari soldier is twice as strong as any human. But you know what makes us strong? What? We work together. Every human you met over the past 50 years has been part of one giant plan. The farmer, The trader, the scientist, the engineer. We're all part of the same team. Captain Nina Rodriguez entered the hall, escorting a group of Zephyrian prisoners. They looked confused and defeated. Admiral Carter, Nina reported, the last Zephyrian forces have surrendered. Their entire military command structure is in our custody. Carter nodded. Thank you, Captain. What about their civilian population? Unharmed, ma'am. We've restored power to their cities and reopened their trade routes. Medical teams are treating injured soldiers from both sides. Ambassador Veltar looked surprised. You're helping them? Even after they attacked you? Of course, Jake said. We're not monsters, Veltar. We fought to stop their aggression, not to destroy their civilization. Dr. Bennett appeared on screen again. The Zephyrian people are not our enemies. Their leaders made bad decisions, but that doesn't mean we want to hurt innocent civilians. Hive Commander Zakth looked up at the humans with something like wonder. You could destroy us completely. Why do you show mercy? Jake walked over to the defeated commander. Because Zakth destroying you would make us the bullies. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We just want to live in it safely. Speaker Horthvan cleared his throat. The Council must now decide what to do about this situation. The Zephyrian Collective has been defeated, but they are still a member species. If I may make a suggestion, Jake said, the Zephyrians should be given a chance to rebuild under new leadership. War criminals will face justice, but their people deserve a future. What about their military? Asked Thulmora. Admiral Carter answered. We will supervise the reconstruction of Zephyrian defense forces. They will be limited to protecting their own territory, not attacking others. And what about human military forces? Veltar asked. Will you be revealing all your hidden weapons? Jake and Carter exchanged glances. Some of them, Jake said carefully. We believe that peace is more stable when everyone knows the consequences of breaking it. But not all of them? Veltar, Jake said with a small smile. Humans have learned that it's good to have a few surprises in reserve. The Altarian ambassador's ears flattened against his head. How can we trust you if we don't know what weapons you have? How did you trust us before, when you didn't know we had any weapons at all? Jake countered. Trust is not about knowing everything. Trust is about believing that we will only use our strength to protect ourselves and our friends. A long silence fell over the hall. Finally, Speaker Horthvan spoke. The Council recognizes that humanity has acted in self-defense. The Zephyrian attack was unprovoked and illegal. However, we are also concerned about the deception that humanity has practiced. Speaker, Jake said formally, humanity never lied to the Council. We never claimed to be helpless. We simply chose not to advertise our military capabilities. Why? Because weak species get attacked and strong species get feared. We wanted to be neither weak nor feared. We wanted to be friends. And now, Jake looked around the hall at all the alien faces. Some still looked scared, some looked angry, but most just looked thoughtful. Now you know the truth about us, Jake said. We are farmers and traders and scientists who happen to be very good at protecting ourselves. We hope that knowledge will make the galaxy a more peaceful place. Veltar stood up slowly. I have a proposal, he said. The galaxy needs a peacekeeping force, someone to stop aggressive species before they can start wars. I nominate humanity for this role. The suggestion caused another uproar. Aliens argued loudly in dozens of languages. Why humans? Demanded Thulmora.